Welcome to The Shift Show with Adriana Bucci. Join me every week to learn all about narcissistic abuse recovery, healing from physical and emotional pain after the abuse, and everything else to do with toxic people and how they affect your physical, emotional, and mental health. And no, you are not the crazy one. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Let's get right to it. Welcome to episode number 14 of The Shift Show. Today's episode is another great interview. This time it's with Julie Markowitz. She is a psychotherapist and TMS coach. And, she specializes in the treatment of chronic pain and trauma, especially childhood trauma. And we had such a great chat. She had her own struggles with TMS and, she suffered from pelvic pain for several years. And it's just amazing that doing this inner emotional work can really help a lot of people to get out of their chronic pain. So, if you listened to last week's episode with TMS coach Kevin, you'll know that, this stuff works. If you've heard my story, of course, you know that this emotional stuff works as well. So, here is another great, great interview with even more proof that you can absolutely heal from your chronic pain by doing the inner emotional work. I hope you enjoy this episode. As Julie, thanks so much for coming on. Why don't you start with telling us a bit about yourself?
Thank you so much for having me, Adriana. I'm so grateful to be here. I am a therapist and a coach. I specifically focus on chronic pain, so TMS, and complex trauma.
Awesome. And do you have your own TMS journey that brought you into this line of work?
I do. So my TMS journey started from a very young age. At 18 months and 3 years old, I had two very rare autoimmune diseases.
Wow.
I almost died.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really
That's
crazy.
crazy.
But my nervous system was sending communication about how much stress I was under. So I developed what we would refer to as fibromyalgia when I was 10.
Wow.
I also developed an eating disorder.
Oh my
I
gosh.
was a very anxious kid. I was an overachiever. I was very perfectionistic. I had a really hard time. And so I was put into therapy when I was about 12 and it didn't go anywhere. And then when I was 15, I developed really bad depression. And so I put myself back into therapy. And I kept asking myself this question: what's wrong with me?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I so depressed? Why do I hate myself so much? And I just didn't understand. No one could offer me answers. And so I spent about 10 years in this place of self-hatred, misery, chronic pain, but it was just something I felt like I always had to deal with. But I also kept wondering, is there, can I heal in some way? Can people change? And no one offered me any answers. And then in my mid-20s, I developed horrible pelvic pain.
Oh, wow.
So it started with one side of my pelvis. Like I had a pulling that wasn't actually that debilitating, but I did kind of cut down my activity. I was always a very active person. And then I had surgery on that after about a year of looking for answers. And then I started to panic, as a lot of us do with TMS, that there was something wrong with the other side now.
Oh, no.
And so then I asked the surgeon to do surgery on the other side, which he did. And then the pain got worse on that side. So my anxiety skyrocketed. I was really miserable. I wasn't eating. I was just a complete mess. I was going through a couple life transitions at the time. I was engaged to be married and I was applying to business school.
Wow.
And it was a lot. And so I was uncertain about everything in my life. I was really terrified. And so I tried anything that you could possibly imagine to get rid of this pain, and nothing was helping. So it was really scary. I thought I just want one day without this pain. Like that will make everything better. If this pain goes away, then my life will be better.
Mm-hmm.
And so about 2 years into this pelvic pain stuff, I ended up seeing a nerve surgeon. And this surgeon was the first person that didn't treat me like I was completely nuts.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Because I had lots of doctors telling me how, like, basically whatever they told me, I internalized it as you're crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people with TMS have that.
Yeah.
So this nerve surgeon said to me, your pain is real. I can help you. And I also think you need to talk to a therapist. And I said, well, I have a therapist. And he said, no, it's someone specifically about the pain. So I Googled pain psychologist NYC, and I found a therapist who used Dr. Sarno's work to treat people.
Wow.
And so I had already been familiar with Dr. Sarno's work. And when someone introduced me to it, they said, yeah, so I think maybe the reason why your groin hurts all the time is because you're really angry.
Wow.
And so I said, I'm not an angry person. And I think that that's something that comes up for a lot for people with TMS, is that we think whatever this feeling is, that it defines us as a person.
Right.
Instead of being able to separate out, no, I'm not, it's not that I'm an angry person. Like, I have angry feelings sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't understand, I wasn't able to differentiate that.
Mm-hmm.
So part of my healing was learning about feelings and how to identify them, because at that point in time, the only feeling that I believed that I had was fat.
Wow.
So I didn't know until my late 20s that fat was not a feeling. So my work in getting rid of the physical pain was learning how to identify my feelings. So I realized that I often took care of other people at the expense of myself, and I didn't know I was doing that. So that's one of the feelings that causes TMS. I realized that I did repress a lot of my anger. I realized that I was very sad, and that I felt very lonely and scared all the time. And so I was just really out of touch with all of this. And so the pain, the physical pain from the pelvic stuff, resolved in about 6 months of work.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was really great. And I was really relieved when the physical pain went away. But then my anxiety skyrocketed.
Yeah. Very common with TMS. That totally happened to me too, when my physical pain went down, and it's so common for so many people. I'm sure you probably have clients who they start doing the work and then they're physically feeling better, and then all of a sudden their anxiety is completely through the roof. And do you think a lot of them feel like they're doing something wrong when that happens, or they're not TMSing properly or doing the work the right way?
Yes, I think they do. But I like to tell people, if you feel like you're getting worse, then you're getting better.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
But I think that what's important about it is that we have these defenses in place for a reason, to protect us. So at the heart of TMS is a disconnection from ourselves and other people.
Right.
So if we don't know what we're feeling, we don't know how to connect to ourselves, and we don't know how to connect to other people. And so we need to have new defenses in place in order to keep us disconnected and preoccupied, so we don't have to think about all of the things that are too painful for us to think about how maybe how disconnected and lonely we feel. Because if we're just stuck with thinking about the pain all the time, then like that's a lot easier to think than like, wow, I don't feel close to anyone.
Right. And what do you think, do you think childhood trauma has a huge role to play in this?
That's a leading question with seeing a huge role. Yes.
Yeah. The biggest role, really.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, and when we talk about childhood trauma, I think that it's important I think that people have this association with it as like, you have to be sexually abused, or you have to be physically abused in some way. And that's not a general enough definition of trauma. Trauma is anything that is too overwhelming for the nervous system.
Right.
So if your parents were not attuned to your feelings, that's traumatic. If
Mm-hmm.
your parents, you know, didn't know, they were anxious and not aware of what they were doing, that's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
If, like, I think when we feel invalidated as children, it's almost like death
Right.
sometimes. So it's really important that people understand that just because they've maybe had childhood trauma, that doesn't mean that your parents were bad or something. It means that maybe they didn't know what they were doing.
Right. Right. Like it could be intentional or unintentional emotional abuse.
Right.
And
Or
that's still
neglect.
valid trauma. Yeah. That's still a valid trauma for someone to go through, even if their parents meant well.
I mean, it can be traumatic if a parent works too much
Yeah,
and is trying to take care of their kids.
exactly. Yeah. And then that whole like equating it to death, it's so true because it's like the child's brain just kind of interprets this emotion as bad. And if I
Yes.
feel this emotion, my parent's not going to love me anymore. And then I die.
Right, exactly. That's so
Yeah.
important. And I think there are videos that are really, they're awful to watch, but it's so effective to help learn about this still face experiment where mothers mothers are, the way we learn how to identify our emotions and process them is by our mothers mirroring our emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and so our caregivers mirroring them. And so in this still face experiment, the baby makes these faces and the mom is supposed to mirror back what she's seeing. But
Mm-hmm.
then when the mother keeps her face still, the baby becomes so devastated that
Oh,
it's like it's abandonment.
wow.
And so when our parents don't do that for us, we we learn that we can't trust ourselves, we can't trust our feelings,
Mm-hmm.
we have to repress them in all certain way, in all different ways. So
Right.
for those of us with TMS, a lot of the times it was that we didn't have a caregiver that helped us learn how to tolerate and process our emotions, so
Mm-hmm.
we get physical symptoms instead.
Right. And it's almost like you have to hide a part of yourself as a kid.
Yes. So I think it's, we have to hide parts of ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
because whatever is our caregivers mirror back to us that is acceptable to them is
Mm-hmm.
what we can, that's how we survive in that environment. And for some
Right.
people that acceptable part is actually someone who is like scapegoated all the time.
Right.
Like that's what works in that family dynamic. And for some people it's being perfect,
Mm-hmm.
or being a jokester, or like there are many different examples of what works to survive in certain environments, but or being the sick one.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the case of TMS that happens a lot, like
Right.
the sick, the crazy one. um but that's, that doesn't speak to who we are as whole people.
Right.
And so I think when we heal from TMS, part of the healing is that we have to learn who we are as whole people, and
Mm-hmm.
not just whatever we think is acceptable or what other people around us think is acceptable, and really like get into our own vulnerabilities,
Right.
which is scary as fuck.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. It's like this whole unlearning of everything that you thought was a fact because that's kind of how you grew up. And then you realize like none of this is true.
Right. None of it is true, but it is true in the environment in which you grew up in.
Right.
And it can be true with the people that you surround yourself with,
Right.
because that's what's familiar. And so in order to heal, a lot of the time we have to like reevaluate who we really are and what we really want. And that's very terrifying,
Yeah.
because when we don't grow up in an environment where we can trust ourselves and our emotions, and that we can trust that other people will take care of us, we learn all of these maladaptive ways to try to like meet our needs.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it really hard, and it makes it really difficult to be close to people and to just be our full selves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that like healing is learning to really learn to trust our own experience,
Right.
which is so hard.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when, you've maybe been brought up in an abusive situation, maybe with emotional abuse, neglect, narcissistic abuse, any kind of abuse, really. Like all abuse is valid, of course. And, then you reach your adulthood and it's like, wow, like you have to unlearn pretty much everything. And that's very fucking scary.
Yeah, it's so scary. It's like, I think that throughout our healing journeys, we have to like go through phases of unlearning certain things and then unlearning other things and then learning certain things. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's just a big mess. And we want it to be this beautiful box
Mm-hmm.
of healing. Like, this is what you do. This is how it works. This is how long it takes.
Right.
And while I think that that can help nourish certain parts of us, which for TMS, I think a lot of us have this issue of independence versus dependence.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to feel really independent and like we can take care of ourselves. But when we develop physical symptoms, I think a lot of the time it's because we have this yearning to be taken care of and saved.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we could have a program that says, this is what you do,
Right.
and this is exactly what happens, that feeds on that dependency. And it makes us feel more dependent on other people in a way that doesn't necessarily help us learn to trust our experience.
Right.
And so it's like part of healing, which really sucks, is like learning how to sit in the not knowing,
Mm-hmm.
the difficulty understanding ourselves, like having to sit with like, well, I don't know what I'm feeling right now,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't know how to do this. And that's not to say that help isn't good. We all need help, but we need help that's going to help us out of this feeling that we need to be rescued,
Right.
because that's a way we give up our power.
Mm-hmm.
And we love to give up our power because then we don't have to take responsibility for anything we do,
Exactly.
which would be great. But
Yeah.
as adults, we have to learn how to take personal responsibility, unfortunately.
Exactly.
And so I like, I say a lot of the time when I work with people with TMS, like, the pain's giving you a great reason to not do all these things that you don't want to do.
It's true.
And part of your healing right now is that you need to be okay with being like, I don't want to do this.
Exactly. Exactly. Like it's okay to not want to do the work, but you can still do it anyways, even though there's all that resistance there.
It's okay to not want to do the work. It's okay if you don't want to go to X person's soccer game. It's okay if you don't want to get out of bed today. Like, all of that's okay. But what's going to make you feel better about doing it is by actually acknowledging that this is something that you don't want to do, or you do
Exactly.
want to do, instead of being like, well, I can't do that because of the pain, or I need this because of the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a way to disconnect from yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you're saying like, this thing outside of me is controlling
Mm-hmm.
my wants and needs, instead of being able to come from me. And this isn't anyone's fault. It's programming from the past.
Exactly.
Like, when maybe your needs weren't valid, maybe
Right.
your feelings weren't validated, maybe there were all these ways in which that's how you were able to get by.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not, it comes a point where we realize that those behaviors don't serve us anymore.
Exactly.
And we have to make a decision, like, am I going to do this work of realizing who I really am,
Mm-hmm.
and how I really feel about things, or am I going to just stay here? And it's not easy. It's awful.
Right. It's terrible. But do you think people have to reach a certain point of suffering where they'll be okay with doing this awful work? Or like, do you think there's like a maximum, like someone has to hit their maximum suffering before it's like, okay, time to do something different, or try something different, or try this horrible emotional work that,
just sounds terrible, but I have nothing to lose at this point. Like, do you think people reach a max?
Yeah, I think they do. I
Yeah.
think that, like, I'm thinking about my own journey, and it's like, okay, I was stuck in all of these therapies that weren't working for me.
Right.
And then I get this horrible pelvic pain, and then suddenly I get into a therapy where I actually start doing the work.
Yeah.
And I think doing the work, like, I want to clarify what that means, because I hear people say you need to do the work.
Yeah.
And
Like, what does that mean?
what does the work mean? The work means looking at yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing what is actually going on with you.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, also what role you play in your social dynamics, because we have symptoms because we have interpersonal issues, because we have trouble being close to other people. So we have to look at what is it that I'm doing unconsciously, because it's almost always unconscious,
Mm-hmm.
that is creating these dynamics that aren't helpful to me in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it is awful to look at that and be like, I was doing that. Like,
Yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
God. But there's a beautiful acceptance and, like, opportunity that comes when you're like, instead of shaming yourself for whatever you're doing, it's like, wait, I know this, I'm aware of this now, and I can do something about it.
Exactly.
And so, like, I had all these moments when I first started healing from my physical pain, like, being so pissed about the things that I was hearing about myself. Like, it was awful. But that's where my growth was, like, to
Right.
look at these things that felt horrible to me and be like, wait, now I can do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you're doing things unconsciously, it feels terrible because you feel helpless. Like,
Exactly.
it feeds on that awful helpless feeling. But when we take our power back and we actually decide to become aware of what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
it's terrifying. But
Yeah.
that's also freedom.
Yeah. And it's overwhelming because it's
Yeah.
like, wow, like you feel like you have to do all these different things and, different modalities on how to heal. But the reality is there's really no right or wrong way to do it. And you can't really blame yourself for not knowing what you didn't know in the past when you were going through these patterns unconsciously.
I love blaming myself for things I didn't know.
We all do.
Yeah, it's awful.
It's so normal to do that.
Yeah, it is so normal to do that. It's way easier to blame ourselves than to realize that we have very little control over anything except our own behavior.
Exactly. And a huge part of having that control is doing that emotional work.
It's raising your conscious awareness.
Yeah.
Like, I tell people this all the time. The key to your healing is by being more aware of what's going on with you.
Right.
And it's like, unfortunately, raising consciousness is really hard, and a lot of the time we need other people to point out to us what's happening. And so it's like this process of having to realize, like, oh, okay, like, I actually need other people to help me through this, and that's okay.
Yeah. Being okay with things that are okay that we didn't think were okay in the past.
Yes. Yeah, like having needs.
Yeah.
And feelings.
Like a human.
Right, like a human.
Yeah.
I think that it's like, it's so hard though, because for a lot of us, I think, who've had childhood trauma, being a human is very scary.
Yes.
Because in order to get by, we had to kind of feel like we were superhuman in certain ways. And then we didn't have desires, we didn't have wants, we didn't have needs.
Yeah.
We were just like, this term I came up with, vehicles of service.
Yes. Ooh, I like that. Oh man, that's so true. That's so how I felt as a kid. Like, I was literally this vehicle of service. And like, what's funny when you mentioned about like being human and being, having human needs and whatnot, I remember as a kid, like, I would look down on other kids who were having fun because like they're so immature, and like I'm like 8 years old having these thoughts, and it's like, looking back, it's like, oh my gosh, no, like I should have been able to have fun as a kid and not judge other kids for having fun.
my schedule as a 10-year-old child that I created for myself, by the way, was wake up at 5 a.m.,
Oh my
practice the
God.
piano for an hour, go to sleep in the car on the way to school, go to school, figure skating practice for 2 hours,
Wow.
do my homework in the car, then like structure into some time where I could like do these ritualistic eating disorder behaviors,
Wow.
and then go to bed.
Wow.
I mean, it was.
That's a lot for an adult, and never mind a 10-year-old.
Oh, and then I also had my own company.
What?
Yeah.
What was your company?
I sold Beanie Babies on eBay.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's amazing.
I made a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I was 10.
Entrepreneur by 10. Wow.
Right. I mean,
That's
it's like,
wild.
but you know what? What it speaks to is that I was trying to control my environment and
Yeah.
I was trying to figure things out. And, I feel sad talking about it because it's like, I didn't know what fun was.
Yeah.
I felt so isolated all the time. Like I didn't really have friends at school.
Mhm.
I lived in a world of books and obsessions and fear
Yeah.
and physical pain, and that was my life. I
Yeah.
mean, it like I did look down on other kids. I'm like, you're like eating pizza and like laughing. Aren't you supposed
Loser.
to go to work? Like, aren't you
Right?
supposed to be at a job right now? You're 10.
Yeah. Like, you should be an adult by now.
But that like it speaks to this idea that like you and I had to disavow a child part of ourselves that
Yeah.
wanted to have fun and
Yeah.
play and probably
Exactly.
wanted to be like the other kids.
Yeah.
And
Do you,
it's go
no, go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say, do you think like learning how to have fun just in general has been part of your own healing?
Yes. So a few years ago, I was going through this transition where I really in my own healing journey where I like really felt like I needed to value myself in a different way. And so I was always terrified of being on stage, even though, I was a figure skater, I was a pianist, like I
Mhm.
did all this stuff, but being on stage terrified me. And so I had a friend that told me that he was taking a musical improv class in New York. And I was like, well, I think this is something I have to do, but it's totally terrifying.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I think a lot of us with TMS like to do is we like to make whatever fun thing we're doing into a job.
Mhm. So
So it
true.
can't actually be fun.
Yeah.
And so I started taking musical improv classes and sort of made it into a job, but I also learned to have fun and be more in the moment of like
Mhm.
learning how to just be there and to
Yeah.
like laugh and to have a good time. Because like healing from trauma is a really serious thing
Yeah.
and it's really hard. It's very painful. But like, I think I sometimes make my own healing into a job too. And
Right.
so, like, having fun can still be hard for me.
Mhm.
And so, I have to, like, the improv stuff was really cool because it was like structured time where I was supposed to have fun. I mean, I definitely made it not fun lots of the time, but sometimes I had like so much fun.
Yeah.
And like, I ended up writing and recording my own song
That's awesome.
called Asshole Recovery.
Nice.
And it's about my own journey of healing.
Cool.
And it helped open up something for me that I hadn't been able to have because like we have these child parts inside of us that have like they need to go to recess, like they
Mhm.
need to like do the things that we didn't get to do as kids, or even if
Right.
we did get to do them as kids, like we still need to have that joy in our life that um that I'm trying to think of the word, oh, a sense of wonder about the
Mhm.
world. Like one thing that I try to do every day is I try to go outside and I try to look at flowers and birds
Mhm.
and have a sense of wonder about it. Like, wow, I can't believe I'm seeing this. This is so cool. And make make space for like the beauty of the world and like fun things that feel good to us. And I think another thing I want to say, I think for a lot of people with TMS, like we don't know what that looks like for us.
Exactly.
And so it can be a really lovely part of healing to discover what brings us joy,
Yeah.
and what we think is funny or fun,
Mm-hmm.
and bringing that into our lives in a really structured way.
Yeah.
Like really allocating time, like I have to have fun today.
Yeah. That's such a
And
great idea.
that can actually cause symptoms too.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I think that a lot of the time I find that people, when they do things they like, they feel like they don't deserve it. And so then it increases symptoms too.
That's so true. That's so true. Because it's like you've spent all this time as a kid believing that you're not supposed to have fun, you're not allowed to have fun, there's consequences to having fun, or like whatever it is. And then it's like as an adult you're like forcing yourself to have fun, and it can be so uncomfortable. And then of course it makes so much sense that you would have symptoms after that, because it's a new thing that you're trying. That's just, it was so uncomfortable to you as a child, and now as an adult, like you're really really stretching your comfort zone.
Yeah. Did you have any fun as a kid?
I tried to, and then I'd get in trouble for having too much fun. So I definitely repressed a lot of fun and that whole sense of wonder thing. Like if I wanted to like draw as a kid, like I'd get in trouble for like making a mess,
Mm-hmm.
so things like that. So it's like I never really gave myself the chance to like fully have fun or just do something because it's fun. It was more like out of a necessity. So, if I had to draw something for school, then it was like, okay, fine, but I'm not going to enjoy myself while I do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, drawing actually ended up being part of my healing journey for myself. I didn't know I had any talent whatsoever, but I just randomly decided to get a sketchbook one day and see what would happen. And I definitely challenged myself to fail. Like I did this challenge, which was like fail on purpose. And I now incorporate that in like it's a chapter of my book where it's like force yourself to fail on purpose. And I decided I was going to draw a lion. And I figured, okay, it's going to be like a really weird stick figure, whatever. But it ended up being pretty good, and I surprised myself. And it took everything I had to not be like, okay, let me improve this skill so I can start selling these drawings, because otherwise drawing is just useless. So yeah, definitely I made the conscious choice to not turn it into a job. And yeah, now I haven't drawn for a while, but it's just been something that I have done for fun, and just genuinely allowing myself to enjoy doing that, even though there's no like payoff for it. It's just a thing that is fun.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's so important, the idea of bringing creativity into our lives as part of healing.
Yeah.
For me, I have something similar too, which was singing. I really loved to sing as a kid, but part of my personality was that if I wasn't perfect at it, then it was terrible.
Yeah.
And yeah, why bother? So I gave it up. And, through my own healing, I was like, I think I really need to start singing. I think I need to take lessons. And it was a wake up call to realize that I was not an amazing singer, that I had to work at it, that I had to have a growth mindset about being like, oh, I have to take lessons and I have to practice in order to be good at this. And so it was also really great though, because it opened up this space for me of being like, my current voice teacher likes to talk about permission to suck. And so sometimes I just have to be like, well, I sound terrible, and I'm working on it, and I have joy while I'm doing it. If it sounds like shit, it sounds like shit.
Yeah,
I'm still really hard on myself about it. But it's like, that's something that I get to give myself.
Yeah.
And
That's amazing.
it's something that I love. But I know that for a lot of us who struggle with these kind of issues, it's like, well, sometimes bringing myself to do something that I love is really hard too.
Yeah, for sure. It is hard because and sometimes it's like you don't even know what you love. So yeah, it's pretty much like, making it okay to make mistakes and understanding that it's okay to make a mistake and it's okay to not have fun or to have fun or whatever.
Right. I think that it's the idea of it's all okay is a really important point. It's okay to make a mistake. I think that part of healing is also learning, like, it's okay to admit that you made a mistake, and that there don't have to be dire consequences for that, and that there's space for lots of different options that we didn't think were available to us or we didn't know were available to us.
Exactly. And it's, it just changing your beliefs on that and understanding that it really is, it's okay to be human while you're having a human experience.
Yeah, that's such a good way to put it. Like, it's okay to be human while you're having a human experience. It's like, I think that sometimes we totally forget that.
Yeah.
That there's so many standards that we set for ourselves, or that society sets for us, or our families of origin set for us, that we don't know that it's okay to come up with new standards.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. Do you have any final words of wisdom for anybody listening on, just, I guess, just the TMS journey in general and just healing and maybe dealing with the overwhelm?
The overwhelm is okay. It doesn't last forever. And the best thing that you can do for yourself is learn how to trust yourself and your experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And if people want to get a hold of you, how can they reach you?
Sure. So I have an Instagram. It's Julie_Markowitz_therapy. My website is juliemarkowitztherapy.com. And I have a Facebook group that's From Pain to Power Chronic Pain Recovery.
Awesome. We'll put all the links in the episode description so people can easily access that and get more information on you.
Awesome.
Well, thanks again so much for being a guest on my podcast. It's been such a great chat that we've had about this, and I'm sure that your story is going to help so many people listening.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Anytime. See you later.